The experiment begins. Daniel Carter woke up with a sharp pain in his head. His body felt heavy, like he had been drugged. Blinking against the bright white light, he tried to move, but something held him down. His wrists and ankles were strapped to a cold metal table. Panic shot through him. His breathing quickened as he looked around. The room was sterile, glowing with soft white lights embedded in smooth metallic walls. Strange symbols glowed on the ceiling. Machines hummed in the background, their alien-like shapes confirming his worst fear. He had been abducted. Daniel struggled against the restraints, but they didn't budge. His heart pounded. Where am I? Who took me? What do they want? Suddenly, a door slid open without a sound. 4 tall figures entered. They weren't human. Their skin was a pale silver, smooth and flawless. Their eyes were large, glowing like liquid gold. They wore long, flowing robes, their movements eerily graceful. They didn't speak, but Daniel felt something in his mind, like whispers brushing against his thoughts. Subject is awake. Begin the process. A machine moved closer, its long metallic arms stretching towards him. No, get away from me, Daniel shouted, pulling against the straps. The tallest alien, who seemed to be the leader, tilted its head. Its voice entered his mind, emotionless and cold. Do not resist. The process will not harm you. What process? Daniel demanded, fear lacing his voice. You have been selected. You are the prime candidate. This is necessary for our survival. Daniel's blood ran cold. You're experimenting on me, aren't you? None of them answered. Instead, a mechanical arm extended toward his head, a sharp needle-like instrument glowing blue at the tip. Daniel thrashed violently. No, you can't do this. Just as the machine was about to touch his skin, something unexpected happened. A new figure stepped forward. Another alien, but different. She had the same silver skin and golden eyes, but her gaze was softer, almost concerned. Her robe was deep blue, and her posture wasn't stiff like the others. Stop. The machine froze. The other aliens turned to look at her. The leader's voice echoed in the room. Ziara, this is against protocol. The process must continue. No, her voice was firm. He is not a test subject. He was not chosen for an experiment. Daniel, still breathing hard, stared at her. His mind spun. What are you talking about? Ziara turned her glowing golden eyes toward him, and for the first time since he woke up, Daniel felt something strange, concern. You were never chosen for an experiment, she said softly. You were chosen as my bondmate. Silence filled the room. Daniel's heart nearly stopped. His mind screamed at him. What did she just say? The leader looked displeased. He is human. He will resist. Then he will choose. Ziara stepped closer, her eyes locked onto Daniel's. I will not force this upon him. Daniel barely processed her words. Chosen. Bondmate. What the hell was happening? But one thing was clear. Whatever these aliens had planned for him, it was far bigger than an experiment. And somehow he was now at the center of it. The truth about the selection. Daniel's mind was spinning. Bondmate. Was this some twisted alien joke? He stared at Ziara, struggling to process her words. What do you mean, bondmate? His voice cracked, filled with disbelief. Ziara's golden eyes softened as she approached, her silver skin shimmering under the stereo lights. The other aliens stood motionless, waiting for her next move. You were not brought here for experiments, Daniel Carter, she said gently. You were chosen by me. Daniel shook his head. No, no way. I don't even know you. And I'm not marrying an alien. A flicker of pain crossed Zara's face, but she quickly masked it. It is not marriage as you understand it. Our species, the Zephyri, form bonds through the mind and soul. A connection deeper than any physical tie. Without it, we cannot survive. Daniel scoffed, pulling against the restraints again. So what? You expect me to just accept this, to be with someone I don't even know. Ziara raised her hand, and the restraints around Daniel's wrists and ankles released with a soft hiss. He sat up quickly, rubbing his wrists, ready to fight if needed. But Zara made no move to stop him. I do not expect you to accept anything without choice, she replied calmly. But you must understand. Our species is dying. For centuries, we thrived, but something changed. Our genetic structure weakened. No new life survived past infancy. We searched the stars for hope, and we found it in humanity. Daniel stood up, backing away. His heart was pounding. So, what? You just pick humans like livestock. Force them into this bond. Ziara shook her head. No, we cannot force a bond. It must be mutual. But we do seek out those who are compatible. Humans with strong will, strong minds. You were the strongest we found. Daniel couldn't believe what he was hearing. This is insane. I want to go home. A deep voice echoed in his mind, cold and sharp. That is not an option. Daniel turned to see the leader of the aliens step forward. His golden eyes were devoid of emotion. You have been chosen. The bond must be formed. Resistance will only bring complications. Daniel clenched his fists. Is that a threat? It is a reality, the leader replied. Without the bond, our species will fall. And we cannot allow that. Suddenly, Zara stepped between them, her voice firm. Enough, Corin. I said he will choose. You will not force him. Corin glared at her, but said nothing. He turned and left the room, the other aliens following silently. The tension lingered in the air. Daniel exhaled sharply, his body still tense. Why did you stop them? Ziara's voice was quiet, almost a whisper. Because I believe in choice, Daniel. And because I felt you. Daniel frowned. Felt me. During the selection process, our minds touched. I felt your strength, your pain, your hope. I knew you were different. I could not allow them to take that choice from you. Daniel sat down on the edge of the table, his head in his hands. So, what happens if I say no? Ziara hesitated. If you refuse, you will be sent back to Earth, but your memories of this place will be erased. You will return to your life, never knowing any of this happened. Daniel blinked, surprised. That's it. Her voice grew even softer. But if you refuse, I will be unbonded. And without a bond, I will fade. His heart skipped a beat. Fade? What do you mean? Our life force is connected to the bond. Without it, we weaken over time. I will not survive. Daniel stared at her, his chest tightening. She wasn't lying. He could feel her sincerity. But how could he be responsible for someone's life, especially someone he just met? I didn't ask for this, he whispered. Ziara nodded. I know. But now, the choice is yours. Before Daniel could respond, a bright light filled the room. The walls shimmered, and suddenly, they were no longer in the sterile chamber. They stood on a balcony overlooking a breathtaking city. Towers of glass and metal floated in midair, connected by glowing bridges. The sky was a deep violet, with 3 suns casting golden light over the horizon. Rivers of shimmering blue energy flowed through the air like ribbons. Daniel's mouth fell open. Where are we? This is my home. Zephyra Prime, Zara replied softly. I brought you here to show you. This is what you would be part of. Our world. Our people. Daniel looked around in awe, but a voice in the back of his mind whispered a question that made his blood run cold. If this place is so beautiful, why does it feel like a cage? He turned to Ziara, searching her face. If I say yes, what happens then? Her golden eyes met his, filled with hope and fear. Then, Daniel Carter, you become one of us. A forced union or a new beginning. Daniel Carter stood frozen on the balcony, his mind swirling with questions and emotions. The alien city before him was unlike anything he had ever seen, breathtakingly beautiful, yet haunting in its perfection. Floating towers shimmered under the three suns, and glowing rivers of energy twisted through the sky like living veins. But despite the beauty, Daniel felt trapped. He turned to Ziara, the alien woman who had claimed him as her bondmate. Her golden eyes, so unlike human eyes, watched him carefully, searching for some sign of acceptance or rejection. "This is too much," Daniel whispered, rubbing his temples. "I didn't ask for this. I never wanted any of this." Ziara's face, though alien, displayed a very human sadness. "I know," she said softly, "but your world and mine are now connected. Your choice will determine more than you know." Daniel let out a bitter laugh. "So I either bond with you and save your species, or I refuse and let you die. That's not much of a choice." Ziara flinched at his harsh tone, but didn't look away. "It is not my intention to trap you, Daniel, but there are things you do not yet understand." Before Daniel could respond, a voice interrupted them from behind. "He doesn't need to understand. He just needs to obey." Daniel spun around to see another human, tall, muscular, with piercing blue eyes and short dark hair. He wore a sleek uniform that clung to his frame, and there was a hardness in his gaze that sent chills down Daniel's spine. "Who the hell are you?" Daniel asked, his fists clenching instinctively. The man smirked. "Name's Jax. I was in your position once, long ago." He stepped forward, arms crossed. "Let me guess, you're thinking of running, fighting back, finding a way home." "I thought the same." Daniel narrowed his eyes. "And what happened?" Jax's smirk faded. "I learned the hard way that there's no escape from this place." Ziara shot Jax a sharp look. "That's enough, Jax." But Daniel wasn't backing down. "What do you mean, no escape?" "Ziara said I could leave if I refused." Jax chuckled darkly. "Yeah, that's what they all say at first. But ask yourself this. If humans really had a choice, why do so many stay?" Daniel's stomach twisted. "Because they want to." Jax stepped closer, his voice low. "Or because they're too afraid of what happens if they don't." Ziara's voice cut through the tension. "Jax, leave him be. His choice is his own." Jax shook his head. "You always were the soft one, Ziara. But he'll learn soon enough." Without another word, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the glowing pathways of the city. Daniel stared after him, unsettled. What was that about? Ziara hesitated. "Jax has a complicated history with our people. He accepted the bond, but he never forgave us for taking him from Earth." Daniel's voice hardened. "And what if I don't accept? What happens to me then?" Ziara met his gaze, her expression unreadable. "You will be free to leave." But Daniel wasn't convinced. Something about Jax's warning gnawed at him. "I don't trust this. Any of this." Before Ziara could respond, a soft chime echoed in the air. A shimmering portal opened nearby, revealing a massive chamber filled with other humans and Zafari. Some humans looked content, others distant, almost empty. Ziara gestured for him to follow. "Come, there is more you need to see." Reluctantly, Daniel followed her through the portal, stepping into the heart of the Zafari civilization. The chamber was vast, with walls made of translucent crystal that pulsed with soft blue light. In the center, a large glowing sphere hovered, surrounded by Zafari elders in flowing robes. Humans stood beside them, their faces calm but unreadable. "These are the bonded," Ziara explained. "Humans and Zafari connected through the bond. Together, they share strength, knowledge, and life itself." Daniel scanned the crowd, his eyes landing on a young woman who looked barely older than him. She smiled faintly, but there was sadness in her eyes. "Does it hurt?" Daniel asked softly. Ziara shook her head. "The bond is not painful. It is intimate. Two souls becoming one. Thoughts, emotions, memories, all shared." Daniel's chest tightened. So, no privacy. Ever. Not in the way you understand it. But the connection brings peace, clarity. You are never alone. The idea unsettled Daniel. He valued his independence, his thoughts, his freedom. Could he really give that up? Suddenly, a loud alarm blared through the chamber. The glowing sphere flickered violently, and the Sci-Fi elders looked around in alarm. "What's happening?" Daniel asked, heart pounding. Ziara's expression darkened. "There are those who oppose the bond. Rebels who believe humans should never have been brought here." Daniel's breath caught. "Rebels? You mean?" Sci-Fi. She nodded. "They believe our time should end naturally, that bringing humans into our world disrupts the balance, and they will do anything to stop the bonding process." Daniel's mind raced. Not only was he caught in a life-changing decision, but now he was in the middle of an alien conflict he barely understood. "Great," he muttered sarcastically. As if this couldn't get any worse. Ziara placed a hand on his arm, her touch surprisingly warm. "I will protect you, Daniel, no matter what." But Daniel wasn't sure if she was protecting him or trapping him. The dark secret of the Sci-Fi. The blaring alarm echoed through the chamber, vibrating through Daniel Carter's bones. His mind raced as the glowing sphere flickered violently, casting eerie shadows across the room. The Sci-Fi elders exchanged silent, telepathic messages, their expressions tense. Daniel turned to Ziara, panic creeping into his voice. "What do these rebels want? And why does it feel like I'm in the middle of something I don't understand?" Ziara's golden eyes flicked to his. "Because you are." She grabbed his hand and pulled him through the crowd as Sci-Fi guards rushed in, their sleek armor reflecting the glowing light. Humans bonded to the Sci-Fi were ushered to safety, their faces calm despite the chaos. But Daniel wasn't bonded. He was alone in this alien world, tethered only by confusion and fear. "Where are we going?" Daniel asked, breathless as they weaved through narrow corridors. "Somewhere safe," Ziara replied, her tone sharp with urgency. They burst through a door into a dimly lit room filled with screens, consoles, and strange devices. Daniel's eyes widened at the sight of several humans standing silently, their eyes closed, floating inside transparent tubes filled with a shimmering blue liquid. "What the hell is this?" Daniel demanded, stepping back. Ziara hesitated, her voice quieter now. This is what happens when humans refuse the bond." Daniel's blood ran cold. "You told me they were sent back to Earth. You said they were free." "I said they would be free," Ziara corrected softly. "But I never said how." Daniel's stomach churned. "So you just put them to sleep, keep them like prisoners?" Ziara shook her head. "No, Daniel. They are not prisoners. They are waiting." "Waiting for what?" Daniel's voice cracked with disbelief. "For compatibility. Not every human can bond with a Sci-Fi immediately. Some must wait until a suitable match is found. Until then, they rest in stasis. It keeps them safe." Daniel felt like the floor had been ripped from under him. His fists clenched at his sides. "Safe? You call this safe? They're trapped, just like me." Ziara's eyes softened, but she didn't deny it. Suddenly, Daniel's mind flashed back to Jax's warning. If humans really had a choice, why do so many stay? He took a step back. "This is why Jax warned me, isn't it? You say it's about choice, but the truth is, you never really let anyone go." "It is not that simple," Ziara replied, a hint of desperation in her voice. "Our species cannot survive without this bond. Without you. We are not trying to control you, Daniel. We are trying to save ourselves." Daniel's voice rose. "At what cost? Our freedom? Our lives." A sudden explosion rocked the room, sending sparks flying from the consoles. The rebels had found them. Ziara grabbed Daniel's arm. "We don't have time for this. We need to leave, now." Daniel yanked his arm away. "No, I need answers. If I'm going to be stuck here, I deserve to know the truth. Before Ziara could respond, the door burst open, and a figure stepped through the smoke. It was Jax, holding a sleek alien weapon, his blue eyes hard with determination. "Time's up," Jax said, aiming the weapon at Ziara. "Step away from him." Ziara raised her hand slowly, her golden eyes narrowing. "This is not the way, Jax." Jax let out a bitter laugh. "Isn't it? I'm not letting another human fall into their trap. Daniel, come with me. I can get you out." Daniel looked between them, his heart pounding. "Out? How?" Jax's eyes softened for a moment. "There's a ship hidden outside the city. I've been waiting for the right time to escape, and now's our chance." Ziara's voice cut through the tension. "If you leave, Daniel, you will never know the whole truth. You will never understand why you were chosen." Daniel's mind was a whirlwind. Did he trust Ziara, who had lied but seemed to genuinely care? Or Jax, who clearly hated the Zephyri but promised freedom? "Why do you even care what happens to me?" Daniel asked Ziara, his voice shaking. She stepped closer, her voice barely a whisper. "Because when I touched your mind, I felt something I had never felt before. Not just compatibility, but connection. Real connection. Not as a savior to my people, but as someone I care about." Daniel's chest tightened. She looked so sincere. But could he trust her? Jax scoffed. "Don't fall for it, man. That's what they do. They make you feel things. That bond. It's not love. It's control." Another explosion shook the building, forcing Daniel to make a choice. "Daniel." Ziara reached out to him. "Let's go," Jax urged, holding the door open. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. Every fiber of his being screamed for him to run. But something deep inside whispered that leaving might not be the escape he hoped for. In this alien world full of secrets and lies, one question echoed louder than any explosion. Was his freedom worth the cost of someone else's life? Love or control? The ultimate dilemma. Smoke filled the room as alarms blared, each pulse hammering against Daniel Carter's already pounding heart. The two figures before him. Ziara, the alien who claimed she needed him, and Jax, the human who promised him freedom, stared each other down like predators ready to strike. Daniel felt trapped between them, his mind torn apart by questions, fear, and something else he couldn't name. "Make a choice, Daniel," Jax urged, his voice sharp. "Before it's too late." Ziara's golden eyes shimmered, her voice a soft plea. "If you leave, I will not stop you, but know this, freedom is not always what it seems." Daniel clenched his fists. "Why should I believe either of you?" Ziara opened her mouth to speak, but Jax cut her off. "Because I've lived it. I've seen what they do to us. The bond isn't love, Daniel. It's a leash. They need us to survive, but they don't care about us. We're just fuel for their dying species." Ziara's voice trembled with frustration. "That's not true. The bond is not control. It's connection. Without it, we fade. But we don't force it. We can't." Jax let out a harsh laugh. "And yet here we are. A room full of humans in stasis because they said no." Daniel's head spun. Enough. His voice echoed louder than the alarms. "I don't know who to trust, but I'm not going to stand here while this place falls apart." He pushed past them and ran into the hallway, his pulse racing. Behind him, Ziara and Jax followed, their truce fragile and temporary. As they navigated through the chaos, Daniel's mind flashed back to Earth, to the simple life he once had. Late-night drives, greasy burgers at roadside diners, falling asleep under the stars. "I never wanted any of this," he thought bitterly. "I just wanted a normal life." But what even was normal now? They reached a large control room, walls lined with holographic displays showing different parts of the city. Fires burned in the distance, and ships circled above like vultures. The rebels weren't just attacking. They were trying to take over. Daniel turned to Ziara. "What happens if the rebels win?" Her face darkened. They believe the bond is unnatural. If they succeed, they will sever all human connections, by any means necessary. Daniel's chest tightened. What does that mean? Jax's voice was grim. It means they'll kill every bonded human, and anyone who refuses the bond. Well, they'll never wake up. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. They'll kill everyone. Ziara nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. Without the bond, we die. But the rebels would rather see us, and you, destroyed than continue the bond. Daniel felt like the walls were closing in. So my choices are to bond with you and lose myself, or refuse and risk being killed by your own people. No, Ziara said firmly. Your choice is whether to trust me or not. Jax scoffed. Yeah, because trust worked out so well for the rest of us. Before Daniel could respond, the control room's doors slammed shut, locking them inside. A deep voice filled the room, cold and emotionless. Daniel Carter, your presence has disrupted the balance. Your choice will determine the fate of both humans and Sci-Fi. Choose wisely, or not at all. Daniel's eyes widened. Who the hell is that? Ziara's expression turned grim. Koran, the one who wanted to force your bond. Jax cursed under his breath. Perfect. The psycho's in charge now. The screens flickered, showing Koran's pale, silver face. His golden eyes stared directly at Daniel. Bond with Ziara, and we will survive. Refuse, and both our species perish. Is your freedom worth that price? Daniel's fists clenched. You can't put that on me. Can't I? Koran's voice was like ice. You are the prime candidate, Daniel. The strongest human mind we found. Your bond would save us all. Daniel felt his anger boil over. You don't care about me. You care about what I can do for you. Ziara stepped forward, her voice trembling but firm. I care, Daniel. Not because of what you can do, but because of who you are. Daniel's breath caught. Why me? What makes me so special? Ziara's golden eyes softened. Because you fight. Even when everything is against you, you never give up. That strength, that humanity, is what we need. Jax rolled his eyes. Yeah, sure, real romantic. But let's not forget, once you're bonded, your thoughts are never your own again. Daniel's head throbbed. Every choice felt like a trap. But then, something clicked. What if I don't choose either? He asked quietly. Ziara frowned. What do you mean? Daniel's voice grew stronger. What if I find another way? Something neither of you considered. Jax laughed bitterly. Good luck with that. There's no other way out. But Daniel wasn't so sure. He turned to the control panels, scanning the alien symbols. There's always another way. As he searched, Ziara's voice echoed in his mind. If there is, Daniel, I'll stand with you. For the first time, Daniel felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he could forge his own path. Or die trying. The final decision. The control room felt suffocating. Screens flickered with images of chaos across the Sci-Fi city. Alarms blared relentlessly, and Daniel Carter's mind was a battlefield of confusion and fear. Koran's cold, emotionless voice echoed through the room. Your choice, Daniel Carter, will determine the fate of two species. Bond with Ziara and save us all, or refuse and let everything crumble. Daniel clenched his fists, anger boiling inside him. You keep saying it's my choice, but you've trapped me since the beginning. That's not choice, that's manipulation. Koran's face flickered on the screens, unbothered. Survival often requires sacrifice. Choose wisely. Daniel turned away from the screens, his heart pounding. Jax, standing nearby with his weapon still in hand, scoffed. Told you. They don't care about you, Daniel. Just what you can give them. Ziara stepped forward, her golden eyes filled with pain. That's not true. I never wanted to force you into anything. Daniel's head spun. Every moment here had been a battle. Every word felt like a half-truth. His chest tightened. "I didn't ask for this," he whispered, barely audible. Ziara's voice was soft but steady. "I know, but I believe you can save us. Not because you have to, but because you want to. That's what makes you human." Jax shook his head. "Yeah, save them, Daniel. And lose yourself in the process. Great plan." Daniel glared at him. "You have a better idea." Jax smirked. "Yeah, we get out of here. Forget the bond. Forget these aliens. We survive our way." Ziara's voice broke in, sharp and desperate. "Running won't save you, Daniel, or humanity. If the rebels don't kill you, the Zephyri will never stop searching. You can't outrun this." Daniel ran his hands through his hair, frustration bubbling over. "Then what do I do? What choice do I even have?" Silence hung heavy in the air. Then, softly, Ziara spoke. "There is one other option." Both Daniel and Jax turned to her, eyes narrowing. "What option?" Daniel asked cautiously. Ziara's voice trembled, as if she were afraid to even say the words. "The core, the source of our power, of our bond. If you can reach it, you might be able to break the cycle." Jax's eyes widened. "Wait, you're talking about the heart of Zephyra. That's suicide." Daniel frowned. "The heart of what?" "The heart of Zephyra is the core that powers our entire civilization," Ziara explained. "It controls the bond, the energy that connects us. If you can sever it, you can free every human here." Daniel's breath caught. "Free them from the bond?" Ziara nodded, but her expression darkened. "Yes, but it will also destroy us. The Zephyri cannot survive without the bond." Jax let out a low whistle. "So, you're saying, if he destroys the heart, he saves humanity but wipes out your entire species?" Daniel stared at Ziara, disbelief washing over him. "You're really offering me the choice to end your entire civilization?" Her golden eyes shimmered with sadness. "If it means giving you true freedom, yes." Jax grinned, slapping Daniel on the back. "Well, that's an easy choice then. Let's go break this alien heart." But Daniel didn't move. His mind was racing. Destroying the heart would end this nightmare, free every human from the bond, and give them their lives back. But it would also mean the extinction of the Zephyri, Ziara's people. Ziara, he thought bitterly. She had been the only one who showed him kindness, who tried to give him a choice when no one else would. Could he really be the reason her people died? Ziara stepped closer, her voice barely a whisper. "I won't stop you, Daniel, but know that if you choose this, I will fade with them." Daniel's chest tightened painfully. "I don't want you to die," he whispered. "Then bond with me," she pleaded softly. "Not because you have to, but because you trust me." Jax rolled his eyes. "Oh, come on. She's manipulating you. Don't fall for it." Daniel spun around, his voice sharp. "And you're not. All you care about is escaping. What happens after? What if the Zephyri come for us? What if we're never free?" Jax faltered, but his gaze hardened. Better to die free than live as a puppet. Daniel turned back to Ziara. Her golden eyes shimmered with unshed tears. She wasn't pushing him. She wasn't forcing him. She was waiting. His voice cracked. "If I bond with you, will I still be me?" Her voice was soft. "Yes, the bond doesn't take away who you are. It connects us, but your mind will always be your own." Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. He had seconds to decide. Every option felt like a trap. Every choice felt impossible. But then, in the middle of the chaos, one thought anchored him. Sometimes, being human means making the impossible choice. Taking a deep breath, Daniel whispered, "I've made my choice." The room fell silent, every eye on him. What he didn't know was that his choice would change everything. The unbreakable bond. The room felt frozen in time. Alarms still blared, distant explosions echoed through the alien city, and the flickering screens displayed Corin's emotionless face, waiting for Daniel's decision. But in this moment, all Daniel Carter saw was Zara. Her golden eyes filled with hope and fear, and Jax, who waited impatiently, ready to tear everything apart for the sake of freedom. "I've made my choice," Daniel repeated, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. Jax's grin was sharp. "Good. Let's break this alien heart and go home." But Daniel didn't move toward Jax. Instead, he turned to Zara. "I'm bonding with her," Daniel said softly. The room went silent. "What?" Jax's voice was sharp, disbelieving. "No, you can't be serious." Zara's breath caught, and for a moment, her alien composure faltered. "Daniel." Jax stepped forward angrily. "You're making a mistake. Once you bond, you'll never be free. You'll be one of them." Daniel met Jax's furious gaze, his own eyes filled with quiet determination. "Maybe. Or maybe this is the only way to make sure none of us are trapped anymore." Zara's voice was soft, trembling with emotion. "You trust me." Daniel's lips pressed into a thin line. "I don't know if I trust the Zephyri, but I trust you." Jax's fists clenched. "I can't believe this." He let out a harsh laugh. "You're choosing her over your own people." Daniel shook his head. "No. I'm choosing a path where no one has to die, where humans aren't just running, and the Zephyri aren't forcing us into this bond." Zara blinked, confused. "But how?" Daniel took a deep breath. "You said the heart of Zephyra controls the bond, right? What if we don't destroy it, but change it?" Jax scoffed. "You're insane. You're talking about rewriting an entire civilization's core system. You don't even know how it works." Daniel's eyes hardened. "Maybe I don't. But if the bond connects minds, then maybe, just maybe, a human mind can reshape it." He turned to Zara. "Can it be done?" She hesitated, then whispered, "In theory, yes. But it's never been attempted. The risk is overwhelming." Daniel smirked slightly. "Yeah, well, humans are good at doing the impossible." Corin's voice crackled through the speakers, cold and distant. "An interesting idea, Daniel Carter. But theories do not save civilizations." Daniel's jaw clenched. "Maybe not, but I'm willing to try." Zara stepped forward, her golden eyes locking with Daniel's. "If we bond, our minds will become one. Together, we can reach the heart. But," she hesitated, "if we fail, it could destroy both of us." Daniel's heart pounded. "Then let's not fail." Jax shook his head, backing away. "You're on your own, Carter. I'm not sticking around for this." Without another word, he turned and disappeared into the smoke-filled corridor. Daniel exhaled sharply, turning back to Zara. "So, how does this bond thing work?" Zara gave a soft, almost nervous smile. "Close your eyes. Trust me." Daniel hesitated, then nodded, closing his eyes. He felt Zara's presence before he saw her. Her mind touched his gently, like a whisper brushing against his thoughts. Slowly, the connection deepened. Daniel felt her emotions, her fear, her hope, her desperate desire for her people to survive without losing their humanity. And then he felt her memories. He saw the Zephyri homeworld before it began to die. He felt the heartbreak as their children failed to survive, their hope fading with every generation. He saw Zara's own pain, the pressure to find a human bondmate, not for love, but for survival. And beneath it all, he felt her growing affection for him, not as a savior, but as an equal. When Daniel opened his eyes, everything was different. He could feel Zara's presence in his mind, calm and steady. She smiled softly. "We are one now." Daniel nodded. "Let's do this." They reached out together, their minds merging as they focused on the heart of Zephyra. The room around them faded, replaced by a vast, glowing core of energy. It pulsed with life, with connection, but also with control. Daniel gritted his teeth. "We need to change it. The bond can't be forced anymore." Zara's voice was gentle. I'll guide you. But your human strength, your will, that's what will reshape it. Daniel reached out, feeling the immense power of the heart. It pushed back, resisting him. Every fiber of his being screamed in pain, but he didn't stop. No more forced bonds, he thought. No more humans in stasis, no more control. The heart shuddered. Cracks of light spread across its surface. Daniel poured every ounce of his humanity into it. The will to choose, to be free, to love without chains. Suddenly, the resistance broke. A wave of energy exploded outward, shaking the entire city. And then, silence. Daniel gasped, collapsing to his knees. Ziara knelt beside him, her golden eyes wide with disbelief. You did it. Daniel blinked, dazed. What? What happened? The bond is change, Zara whispered. It no longer forces itself upon humans. Now, both must choose willingly. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. We're free. She nodded. Yes, humans are free now. And so are we. Tears filled Daniel's eyes as relief washed over him. But then he noticed Zara's form flickering. Wait, what's happening to you? She smiled sadly. The bond kept me strong. Without it, my time is limited. Daniel's heart clenched. No, we can find a way to save you. Zara cupped his face gently. You already did. Tears streamed down his face. Please, don't go. She smiled softly. The bond is about choice now, Daniel. And I choose you. In that moment, Daniel made his final choice. I choose you too. As their bond solidified, Zara's form stabilized. Together, they looked out over a new world, one where freedom wasn't forced, but chosen. And Daniel Carter, a simple human, became the hero who rewrote the fate of two species, not with power, but with love.